Thank you very much for joining. I am Lauren Kenny, and I teach grades 9 and 12 English at Falmouth High.
And I am Connor Markham. I'm a special education teacher at Falmouth High.
And tonight we're going to talk about what playlists or learning plans are. Those two titles, those names are interchangeable. So some teachers might use the term playlist, some might use learning plans, but they both mean the same thing. They are a means of engaging students in their learning with our content and curriculum. So what is the purpose of a playlist or learning plan? As I'm sure you've heard the term many times, we're focusing on asynchronous instructional design, meaning that which can be done by a student independently. I will say, even though we focus on the independent piece of this, students are using the learning plans with us. Mr. Markham and I co-teach 2 freshman classes. They use these with us in class as well as on their own when they're at home. So it is effective in online instruction, and it's considered a best practice in this blended learning environment where you're part in school and part home, working independently. It is creative in nature, offering creative ways for students to demonstrate their learning. It's engaging and rigorous in its presentation. It's supportive. There's scaffolds involved in this to help students who need that extra support. It's collaborative. Mr. Markham and I work together to create these, and students work with us through the learning plans. It's also super organized, so it helps with students who might need a little bit more help staying on top of their work and knowing what needs to be done and when. So there are 3 types or 3 levels of learning plans, and we're going to show you all 3. But the first that we'll begin with here is the beginning playlist or learning plan. So we're working at the proficient level of the skills that we're assessing our students. We're instructing and assessing our students on. And you'll see a model of it in just 1 minute, but it offers the full week of instruction. So it's a daily agenda anchored to learning objectives for the week. So you'll see the Monday through Friday and everything that is aligned to the objectives for the week. So here we have an example of a beginning playlist. So at the top, this is Mr. Markham and I. We teach the 2 freshman classes together. So you see that we identify the teachers, we identify the week that we're in, the period. There's helpful links to that Zoom button right there. That's an active link to access our class Zooms. Underneath the us part, if you will, we have the learning objectives. And Mr. Markham and I pull this learning plan up every Monday on the board in front of all students, home and in class, physically present. And we go over, this is what we're working on for skills, and this is what we're going to be assessing by the end of this. On the left, you're going to see we have the daily breakdown. This particular class, we have lunch involved and a mask break. And those times don't show up on PowerSchool. So for our at-home learners who don't know that we have a lunch wave first, we put that in the schedule just so they can follow what everyone at school is physically doing. Next to that day, so if we're looking at Monday, you see the daily agenda. Again, if we're looking at an essay prompt and pieces, that is tied to the learning objective about citing evidence and determining theme. So all of that falls under these clear learning objectives. And as you may know, we don't have every class every day. So if you look at Tuesday, you see that we have no class. There's nothing new assigned. It is a continuation of the work that we were doing on the Monday together.
The next type of playlist or learning plan that we're going to go over tonight is the intermediate playlist. Intermediate playlists are great because it encourages student ownership over the path and the pace of their learning. So the student gets to take a little bit more of an independent role in how they learn about and prove their learning to the teacher of a given topic. So intermediate playlists, scaffolds instructions. It gives different options for students to learn about a specific topic. That could be the teacher offering mediums for visual learners, or offering other certain pieces of curriculum that would be more akin to an oral learner. They're linked to the learning standards. So they are linked to what the student should be learning for their subject for the specific year. And it's also an opportunity for students to experience and engage with the content and curriculum. The intermediate playlist is made up of 5 sections. That is the learning standard, the learning progression, there's a learn about it section, a practice it section, and then an evidence of learning. We're going to show you an example of an intermediate playlist right now, and this will kind of bring everything to light and make it, if you want to move to the next slide, Ms. Kenny. Awesome. So it starts off with a learning objective. This usually starts off with a sentence like this week we will, or this week we're going to learn about, or in this unit we will. So this is an example that Ms. Kenny and I created last spring for Romeo and Juliet. So for us, and during this week, it was this week we will read the prologue and first act of the classic play Romeo and Juliet. Moving on from the objective, we then go to the learning progression. That usually starts off with a statement like I can, or by the end of the week I will be able to, or by the end of this unit I will be able to. And that is where the standards come in. So the goal is by the end of this playlist, the student will be able, or if the student is reading this, the student would say, I can, independently and proficiently read and comprehend a literary text, cite strong and thorough textual evidence, so on and so forth. The next section is the learn about it section. This is where the scaffolding comes in. So for Romeo and Juliet, Miss Kenny and I gave a couple of options for the student to read. They could read the actual text, original text from William Shakespeare, or they could have read the modernized text through No Fear Shakespeare. In addition to that, we gave 3 different options for them to get a visual understanding of Romeo and Juliet. One play I think is from the 60s. There's another one, I can't remember. Oh, there's another independent.
The film was from the 60s.
Yeah, the film is from the 60s, excuse me. And then 2 plays, one from, I think, mid-80s, and there was another one that was more recent. So if a student watched a play and said, I can't look at this, I hate plays, they could go for a movie option. Next section is the practice it section. This is when the student starts practicing their skill. This could be made up of a worksheet, a short writing assignment, something to check the student's understanding of what they've learned for the week. In this section, we gave the student 2 options. Again, more scaffolding. You could annotate the text of Read Romeo and Juliet, or you could read the text with guided reading prompts to make sure that their comprehension of the first act and prologue was up to level. Lastly, there's the evidence of learning. This is more, I would call this the bigger assignment. It would probably be weighted a little bit more than the practice it section. So for us, we had reading questions, and we also had the option for students to create a flip grid, which is a short video for a prompt that we chose. Then if you see to the right, there's more scaffolding. Honors was given a writing assignment, but it was also given to all other CP students if they wanted extra credit.
And then the final level of playlist or learning plan is the advanced. So this just looks very much like the intermediate plan, except for it adds a level of scaffolding for, we have the 3 levels of learners, the emerging, the developing, and well, we have the proficient and the advanced, we have the 4. So you'll see that in this one, we break down in both the learn about it and the practice it section. We drive each student to specific learning goals or means of showing their learning depending upon their level. Again, the goal is to get everybody to proficient, but some students might need just that extra little bit of scaffolding. All right, and Mr. Markham is now going to show you, I'm going to stop sharing here. He's going to show you what it looks like from a student's view, how they access these learning plans.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our students would see this. This is our Schoology homepage for our freshman English class. We put the learning plan here in our landing page, and it's here every week and it's updated every week. So we click on this, we see this, and it outlines the week for the students. We make a point to go over this every Monday so the student knows what to anticipate for the week. Also, if they know they're going to be absent or something comes up, they can go to the playlist and make adjustments accordingly and not fall far behind with the class.
It definitely helps in closing those gaps.
And other than that, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Please don't laugh at our emojis.
Yeah. So, I mean, teachers might be using, it depends on their personal preference. It also depends on, as they are looking at the levels of learners in their classroom, we're still in the beginning playlist. We were trying to get, because of the transition from the spring, they're transitioning from Lawrence School. They're brand new to the high school. There are young learners. We're still in the beginning playlist phase. We haven't moved to intermediate. You saw we were doing Romeo and Juliet in the intermediate phase last year. That's because we had had so much time with those students, and we could really, we had a little bit more flexibility and knowing them and their skills to work with intermediate. So it, depending on the subject and the class and the teacher and the students, they could be working on any one of these levels of learning plans. Other than that, we really thank you for coming, and we're here. We can stay on the line for a little bit here if you think of any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
You too.